honored to serve as the advisor of Mike Sampson when he earned his MA in the Interdisciplinary Studies program at Cal State LA. Mike and I will co-moderate the panel discussion. My thanks and respect to David and Mike, who certainly taught me far more than I taught them. David and Mike, can we sit there around? Where's Marisela? Marisela! Oh my goodness. I'm looking at the empty chairs. I couldn't figure it out. All right, you heard the introduction. I'll give like the official introductions. Sophie Rockmill's book, A Higher Form of Politics, The Rise of a Poetry Scene, Los Angeles, 1950 to 1990, published by Otis Book Seismicity Editions, is a translation of her doctoral dissertation, as she explained. She's an American Studies Associate Professor and the Applied Languages Department Chair at Bordeaux University, Montaigne, in France. She was also a documentary filmmaker who studied and taught at UCLA in the 1980s when she directed, produced, and edited the unbelievable documentary that we saw tonight. George Drury Smith lives in Hollywood and Amsterdam, not bad. He's always, you've got to live two places, right? He's always had an interest in experimental writing, which led him to start Beyond Baroque magazine in 1968, precisely the period that we're looking at in our Claiming Freedom series, and opened Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center in Venice, LA's most important and long-standing independent literary venue. He is the author of an experimental novel published in 1912 called The Slant Hug of Time, and worked with Sophie on editing and revising a translation of her book, and as she explained, he was obviously instrumental in the fact that it exists. Marisela Norte has been called the greatest unsung treasure of LA literature, although I would argue she's very sung and very deservedly so. And she's also been described as one of the most important literary voices ever to emerge from East Los Angeles. She is an alumna of Shore High School, yes. And I'd also like to introduce Ms. Betty Harbison, English teacher from Shore High School, who was one of the most esteemed partners of the Center for Contemporary Poetry and Poetics, going on now 8, 9, 10 years or so. Marisela also attended Cal State LA. Her writing has appeared in such top magazines as Rolling Stone and Elle, and she has performed at distinguished venues such as the Tate Modern in London. She is the author of an amazing full-length poetry collection, Peeping Tom Tom Girl, published in 2008 by San Diego City Works Press. Equally a scholar and performer, Mike Sampson, who is also commonly known as Mike the Poet, is a third-generation LA native acclaimed for poetry performances, published articles, and mentoring teen writers. His weekly KCET column, LA Letters, celebrates literary Los Angeles, and in June 2014, he completed an exceptional interdisciplinary MA in English and History from Cal State LA. He is now an adjunct professor at Southwest College and Woodbury University. Now, I'd like to ask Mike to please open up our dialogue.
And this question is for all three of you. How do arts and cultures form a city such as Los Angeles, and vice versa, the interrelationship between the arts and Los Angeles?
Well, I think Sophie explains that very well in her book. She has a wonderful grasp of Los Angeles dynamics, really. And she has integrated this into her discussion of what she saw when she was here during the 80s. And that was going all the way back to the Beats and even before, and carrying it up to 1990 and a little after. And I think she's just done a wonderful job of giving a very objective view to that, because as she says in her introduction, why do I, who am not a poet and not an American and not this and not that, why am I writing a book about poetry in Los Angeles? And the reason is that she was fascinated by it, and she had a wonderful grasp of the situation. So that's all what it was.
Your question was about the intermingling of the arts?
Yeah, and how the arts and cultures form LA, and the symbiotic relationship between LA and the forming of the poetry and the arts. Well, you know, Paul Evangelisti in the book spoke about a California context. You know, what makes Los Angeles poetry different than, say, East Coast or European poetry? How is the poetry scene in Los Angeles different?
Well, I think space is really important. It's really, I think it's important of any place, actually, but place and space is the first thing. And I think also what's specific about Los Angeles is that, or at least what it was, I don't know about today, but that it has a short span of history, I mean, in memory, like maybe 5 years, and then it goes on, and then people, you know, the history is through individuals' memories. That's what stays or what remains or what is talked about is the individual's what they have experienced. But there's no written, or there was not too much written history. So, you know, and I think that for as far as the poetry is concerned, I think Beyond Baroque, the founding of Beyond Baroque was really very important, was instrumental because it helped have a continuity. Whereas before the scene where it was, you know, a few individuals and no history binding them, just individual memories, but Beyond Baroque allowed all these voices to have a foundation and to build on. I think it's really important for any movement or anything to take hold, to have continuity, and to have what Bourdieu calls capital, you know, cultural capital. It means just history to build on. So if there's no memory, no history, then everybody thinks they start over in their own corner all by themselves. Whereas if there's a group or if there's something to build on, it's different. And I think also, yeah, what's really particular about Los Angeles is space. The fact that it's very widespread and that there are many communities. I used, you know, the two books that really led my thinking about Los Angeles, my grasp of Los Angeles, was Mike Davis's City of Ports. You know, I think it's amazing. I love that work. I think it's a great book. You know, despite what people have said, I really don't care. I think it's a great book. It's really inspiring, and I think it has a great grasp of the city. And he's very much inspired by an island on the lot.
Well, Carrie McQueen.
Carrie
Southern
McQueen.
California, yeah. An island
This is a great book. I think these are the two books that are incredible about Southern California, because you can't really speak about Los Angeles. I mean, it's Southern California is what it is. And I think there is an energy in Los Angeles which is it's centrifugal. You know, it goes towards like this. Instead of like that, it goes like that. And so that's what I tried to grasp is to, first of all, to have sort of a geographic thing where I would have poets, you know, because there are scenes from many different places. So to come from various directions, because there's not just one voice of Los Angeles. I think there are many voices. You can't define Los Angeles with one group or, you know, as Wanda says, the clique or, you know, whoever. Yeah. There are different groups. And so that's one thing. Various groups in the city, and I speak in the book a lot about Harvey Kubernick, who did all these recordings. Yeah, and I think he's the first one who really had a take on Los Angeles, because to me, it's really what Los Angeles is about. He has these 3 records called Freeway Record. Well, it's his what's it called?
Was
Imprint.
New Alliance
New
Records.
Alliance was
Yeah, but first
Harvey
it was-
and Greg from Black Flag.
Right, but it was first called Freeway Records.
Yeah.
And he has like three records recording all kinds of voices of poets, but not just poets, of Southern California, and going from one end of the city to the, it's spatial too. I think that spatial thing is really important. And having various communities to represent it, who don't necessarily speak to each other, in fact, or know about each other.
Of course, who was that baby that we just saw? I don't know. That was, honestly, Sophie, when I saw that by myself, I was terrified to put the DVD in. Anyway, how did you find us? There was no email, there wasn't my cute little phone. You made a flyer and you hoped that 10 people showed up to your reading. So how did you find us? I'm curious.
Well, I went to tons of poetry readings. And then what I found actually, because originally I got a grant to, originally I wrote my master's thesis on Charles Bukowski. This is where it all started.
LA, it always does feel like
So I came upon his writing, and I really loved his writing, and and then there was an opportunity for a grant for a documentary or something. So I put this grant together really quickly, this proposal for a documentary. I don't know, 4 or 5 days, because I heard about it. And, the deadline was this, and he speaks a lot about the poetry scene. He speaks not about poetry scene, but about poetry readings. So I thought I would do something about him and his group of people. But then when I came, I saw poetry readings were so much more. And in France, it's not poetry is not read by the people who do it. It's sort of it's not read out loud. You don't read your own poetry because it's thought to be sort of egotistical to do that. So people don't do that. And so when I saw what was being done with poetry, I was just amazed. I thought it was great to not be scared, of poetry and to just do it. I thought it was great. Everything that was being done with poetry, I think it's amazing. You see that diversity in the film. I mean, you see all these people, what poetry, how powerful it is, and what their diversity it is. For example, Lee Hickman, do you remember him? His poetry is very intricate, it's very sophisticated. He unfortunately passed from AIDS pretty quickly after but he was actually, he almost got an award by the it was LA Times Book Award for his book. He was very...
Tiresias?
Yeah,
that's the book he talks. I mean, that's the poem he talks about. He says he's only written one poem. That's what the poem. Anyway, and you see that, and then you see Youthless. They use poetry. Everybody, rock poet. All kinds of things are done with poetry. So I think that's really fascinating and great. And so when I came, I saw all of this. So I went to a lot of readings. See, the way I do things is first, I just go everywhere. Nobody notices me, but I observe a lot. And then I try to pick the people, the movers and shakers. The people who are at nods, who are, where they know a lot of other people, and so for example, Marisela was such a person. So for example, she's the one who told me about Youthless. She's the one who led me to Youthless. And so various people who were movers and shakers told me about different people. And so I filmed about 30 hours of the whole scene, and originally I had envisioned to do something about the whole scene, including Beyond Baroque. But I was alone doing this. Willie was filming, but after that, I had to edit. I had to do everything on my own, and at UCLA. So I almost lived at UCLA, I think. And so I couldn't do the structure. I got stuck. I did this. I think I edited 15 minutes and got stuck. So one way to go about the diversity and was to do portraits. To do 10 portraits, because this way it was easier to handle and do the structure and all of that. And in the end, it would be sort of like a mosaic to give in the diversity in a different way. So I thought that was pretty good, but it meant excluding the people who I didn't have enough on also. But you know, I think editing or writing or anything is about choice. You know, you choose, it means that you select some to be in, and then of course some are left out.
I wanted to ask Marisela one question, and we're going to open it up to general questions, but Marisela has really connected a lot of communities, like the Women's Building, I mean, downtown LA, you know, the punk rock scene, East LA. Talk about how you connected all those different communities together.
Making a lot of flyers. I mean, that's just seriously. It's interesting because I was writing, you know, well, I'll give you the short version of a really long, sordid story. Is this thing on?
Yeah.
It's not, right? Okay, doesn't matter. You guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I was a student at Cal State LA. Is it? This one's on? I was a student here at Cal State, and I was an English major, like a shiny little penny. I was going to be just an English major and blah, 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 blah. So I was taking a class in interpreting poetry with a professor who actually forgot his name.
Was it Henry Collette?
No.
Was it Timothy Steele?
No. This is the 70s. This is before you were born. It was the 70s. Anyway, so I turned in my paper and it came back with a bunch of red marks on it. And he gave me an F. And the F was like, okay, you know, maybe I can do it over. But he wrote a question on it, and he asked me if I was illiterate.
Yeah.
So my little shiny penny never came back to Cal State LA. I dropped out, but I had a bus pass. I had a student bus pass. And every day I would get dressed in my school college girl drag and get on a different bus and just write and hang out and take pictures and sit in really sad coffee house, not coffee house, this is before coffee, donut shops, okay? Before they became like casinos. Now they're like, every donut shop in East LA is like a casino. There's all these grandmas in there with scratchers and lottery tickets. It's really kind of beautiful, but anyway. What was your question again about?
Well, you know, because I know you.
Oh,
the
different
the
communities.
Women's
Women's
Building,
building.
the
Yes,
punk rock
yes,
scene,
yes, yes.
East Side, all
Yes,
the
yes.
above.
So I answered an ad in the LA Reader, which was this kind of throwaway newspaper like the LA Weekly, but it was called the LA Reader, and there was a little ad in the back, and it said Latino Writers Workshop. And so I'm begging my father, give me a ride to 7th and Spring, and he's like, ¿Qué es esta bola de marihuanos? And you know, like he was not going to drop his daughter off at 8 o'clock at night on 7th and Spring. This is before the dog walkers, the cute restaurants. It's a very different downtown, very, very different downtown. So I went, and who do I meet? I meet Luis Rodriguez. I meet Elena Viramontes, Naomi Quiñones, Victor Valle, Marisela Camboa. And they sat there and they listened to me read my 3 sad poems, and they said, where have you been? You need to be here with us. You know, I was like, oh my God. Rodriguez and I were smoking cigarettes on the roof, you know, and oh, it was a beautiful time. And so I started going to this workshop, which led me to a reading I did at Self-Help Graphics, which was kind of met with mixed reviews because there was some very hardcore, this is Chicano poetry, you know, there's a bead pen, there's a chanta, there's a tamal, and that's it. I was not writing about that kind of stuff. And so that kind of made me take a left turn, and I started hanging out with the likes of Gronk and Patsy and Harry, and started kind of doing things with OSCO and writing plays and doing performance. And then that, after that broke up, led me to working by myself, you know, working with a musician, did a reading at the Women's Building, and that led me to, I mean, just everything just led to the next gig.
That's where Sasha Foster says he met you, the Women's Building.
Did he really? Oh my goodness. That's like 80s, that's around this time. Well, judging by the hair and the earrings, okay. Which I still have. So yeah, so that, and then that led me to reading Elizabeth Exene and then Dave Alvin and like the music people, like, and again, Harvey Kubernick, who was everywhere, you know, and he was putting a lot of people together. He did a record called the Black and Tan Club, and it was African American and Latino writers on a spoken word CD. Wow, a spoken word CD. I hadn't had anything published, and they asked me, do you want to record something for this? No, of course I do, yes, yeah, I want to do this. That led to something he did called Disclosure of Voices of Women, which is all women on this record, which is everybody from Michelle Clinton to Wanda to Tequila Mockingbird, Pleasant Gayman, Iris Berry, Nicole Pancher, all these different voices. And then that led to me doing one by myself, and then, you know, 25 years later, I published my first book. So, yeah, but I mean, it's interesting. Luis Alfaro and I did a gig at Self-Help Graphics once, and I remember him taking his clothes off, and he's wearing a full-length black lace slip. And about 25% of the audience left. They were freaking out. You know, they really were. And he's like, Marisela, thank you for inviting me here. And it's almost like I would do gigs with him, which exposed me to a queer audience, and I got him into like the hard, you know, whatever audience I had. So we just kept trading, and that's what you do. It's like changing buses. It really is.
LA had probably the highest CQ of any community in the United States, and by that we meant creativity quotient. Because the film industry and to some extent the music industry had attracted a lot of talent to Los Angeles. I mean, when Beyond Baroque was in the storefront in Venice, people used to wander in, you know, for a poetry reading or just to see what was going on there. And they always had usually a film script in one pocket, and in the other pocket was a poem, you know. But and Los Angeles was absolutely ignored by the Eastern establishment. You know, we were not recognized as having any talent at all except in film. And somehow, once we were able to communicate with people, somehow people started to come together. And all these different communities that Sophie discusses, so, to some extent, got in touch with each other. And there was a little cross-breeding there to some extent. And so Los Angeles started to get on the map. And books like Sophie's and also Bill Moore's have helped put it on the map. And hopefully it will eventually be recognized for what it is, because there are millions of very creative people in the city. And where are they? You know,
Here.
a lot of them right here.
Yeah.
A lot of them are in this room.
And, you know, what I started was just a small part of this, and it wasn't what I intended at all. You know, I wanted to start a literary magazine that would publish kind of poetry that I liked. That isn't what I wanted to see. But somehow it all came together, and people did as they damn pleased, and I let them do it, you know. And all these wonderful people grew out of that, and it's just my advice to any of you is do the footwork, what you think is the right thing to do, and then let it go where it may, you know. let it grow.
The first location of Beyond Baroque was on Abbot before it was even called Abbot when it was called Washington Place.
Washington Boulevard.
Washington Boulevard.
West Washington.
West Washington. Does anybody in the audience have any questions?
Yes, let's open it up now. You must have tons. David?
Yeah, I just wanted to put the name of Louis Lista out there, because I know that Marisela, for one, knows him or knew him well, and he was my old blues buddy, and we were on New Alliance Records.
Yeah.
We did a really terrific CD, Walking and Talking.
We started in Venice.
And of course, I met Michael C. Ford in when I was first exploring the blues with Louis when he was living there off Raymond and hanging out there on the.
Greatest fun I ever had playing music.
It was just some great. It was an amazing scene in LA. Speaking of unknown scenes that spun off out of the old Ash Grove, where all this blues and folk and jazz freaks would hang out to see these absolutely earth-shaking artists come to play. Like I'll never forget when I was there with Louis and a great guitar player named Dennis Morgan. We were all falling out because Howlin' Wolf stepped out of the Cadillac with Big Mama Thornton, and Dennis said something like, "Oh my God, Wolf has got Willie Mae wearing a dress." Anyway, I digress.
No, please do.
AK Tony.
I just want to commend Sophie, for making this film, because most of the poets up there had a great influence on me, and I've seen them during the time that I was real small. And not being from LA and being part of the LA poetry scene, I have to say this, it's truly because of most of those poets up there. I was mentored by Kamal Daoud. Wanda Coleman gave me my first opportunity as a poet on the radio on KPFK. Marisela, she brought me to MoCA, Museum of Contemporary Arts, and I performed there. Jack Grapes, I always turn around and say a quote by him. One of the main people, Laura Ann Bogan, I was a student of hers. Dr. Mongo, I've heard about him throughout time, and one of the greatest things I heard about Dr. Mongo, and I said I had to meet him, and I wound up finally meeting him downtown LA and kicking it with him. But it's not a rumor, it was a true story. He did this performance art piece about crack, and he smoked the crack and he got arrested on stage. And it was just so amazing about being around these artists that were so real and so raw, and they didn't cut any shorts. I just want to say I thank you for that.
I have to say, Marisela, I met you in 2001 at UC Riverside.
I remember it.
When you came to speak at Writers Week, and totally changed my whole. I mean, I was a young writer. Like, there are a lot of young writers in the room right now who I've had the pleasure of meeting in my time here at Cal State LA, who are looking for a way in which to cultivate their voices. Marisela was one of those people for me back then, and I didn't realize what a huge influence Marisela would have having on my work. So I'm very grateful that I'm here with you right now after all these years, because you've been such an important presence in my life for many, many, many years. I had a question though. I saw that picture of you. I mean, I saw you on the, and I thought about all the pictures that you take, that you post on like Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I know that you still do a lot of writing on the bus. My question was, what's changed? Because I saw that picture of you on the RTD.
Yeah.
And it looks
It's empty.
Yeah, it looks almost the same as many of the pictures that you snap, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, like,
oh, wow. Okay.
It's like there's something about the aesthetic of it, and even though somebody else took it of you,
Yeah.
the ones that you take of people when you're reading something over their
Yes.
shoulder or whatever,
Yes.
I'm just curious, like, what have you seen over the years changing on the bus that's affected your writing?
Bad posture. They're not reading a book. They're looking at their phone, and whether it's And what I don't understand, why are you looking, are you that afraid of talking to somebody that you don't know, that you have to pretend that you can actually get some kind of signal when you're in the subway? There's no signal. There's nothing. But you know, ooh, this woman's gonna sit next to me. And so I'm like, you know, I just, you know, do you want to have a conversation? Something, a sign of life, algo. But they're looking at their phone, they're playing a game, or they're reading that text again. You know,
Yeah.
or I tell this story all the time. When I used to work at Mocha, I was Vincent Price in one of the greatest movies called The Last Man on Earth. I was Vincent Price. There's nobody on the street. Bunker Hill. There I am. I'm walking down Grand Avenue to go to the library. Here comes another person. It's like, okay, the zombies aren't going to kill us. There's another guy walking with his little coffee. The minute he gets about this close, he looks down at his phone. Wow. And it's like, really? I'm that terrible. Where's my big horn that, you know, I scare you so much that you can't even say hello to me, right? I've noticed that now. I don't have that many conversations with people like I used to. Even the señoras on the 68, oh, they all have a phone. All the señoras have phones now. Seriously, before it'd be like, ay, mira, oh, va a ir a la escuela, muchos libros. No, señora, me gusta leer. I like to read. Ay, no va a la escuela. No, señora, no va a la escuela. Y no tiene niños. Which is usually the second question. But anyway, so that's changed a lot. You know, everyone's looking at their phone. I kid you not, everybody's looking at their phone. And they're not noticing the person that's like trimming their nails on the bus or doing no, seriously, like some god-awful thing. And I kind of missed that interaction that I used to have, more conversations with people, you know. So that's changed a lot. It's worse now, let me tell you. The bus that I was on right now to get over here, it smelled like bucket plate and like chicken. And there was no air. And I thought, okay, this is where I really lose it, you know. And all the señoras laughing and and back and forth and kids, and I thought, you know, Marisela, maybe you really should learn how to drive. But no.
Have you noticed that that affect your writing? The fact that nobody's talking to each other.
Yeah, it
like,
does. Because it means I have to go inside more. I don't always want to do that. It's more fun to eavesdrop and make up a story about this guy, you know, or her, you know. But I do miss that, though. Like I said, everybody has one.
I have a question for you. I'm not sure how to frame it. I have so many questions, particularly for you, because I guess, how has your creative life, or your life doing all these things that you love doing that are very creative or poetic, how has that informed or formed your Latina identity? I mean, because I think that a lot of, especially here, right? I went to Cal State LA, and you don't really get that conversation about Latinos wanting to go into something creative, you know, because for whatever reason, for a lot of reasons, right? But sometimes there can be that guilt in a very particular way for Latinos because we come from a working class. So how have you had to deal with that? I mean, something brief.
I don't think I ever did, to tell you the truth. You know, I mean, I kept up the facade of, oh, I'm going to school, even though I wasn't, and I dropped out, you know. 78 was not a good year for me. I was sexually assaulted in 78. Let's just add another thing to this wonderful year that we're having. So, you know, everything got kept inside until finally I just started writing, you know, and that kind of helped. That other situation that I was going through. But I never had a conversation with my family and said, I'm going to be a writer. I just did it. I think I was 6 years old when I walked into the kitchen and I told my parents, I need to tell you something. They said, what? And I said, I don't want to get married and I don't want kids. In Spanish, I told them. Yo no quiero casarme, yo no quiero niños. My father's like, you're 6. Like, what are you talking about? I said, but I already know. Don't laugh. I said, I already know. And they were just like, better do it, you know, whatever, you know. And that was the end of that. But there was never that stereotype of, oh, my daughter's going to get married and quinceañera. No. That never. So I don't know about Latina identity. I don't know what that means. You know, I mean, I found this today on the bus. It's like Oaxaca taxi cabs, but it's really like a Latino version of Uber. But that's what you can't make this stuff up, Alex. You know me here.
Yeah, right.
This is my Latina identity.
All these-
It's stuff like this, okay? It's going to see this hideous movie with Jennifer Lopez being stalked, which it's called The Boy Next Door, but I call it Not Without My Lip Gloss because her lips are so distracting in this movie. She's being chased, she's being thrown around, shiny, beautiful. But we saw it in Montebello. Rachel's here and she will tell you this. There's a baby sitting next to her, a 2-year-old watching this film. I'm like, did you see 50 Shades of Grey? Are you here with your crazy mom who's texting, people are on the phone, taking selfies? I'm like, I said, Rachel, it's Montebello. It's the Wild West, I'm sorry. That's part of my Latina identity, you know? And also realize the new C word in Montebello is coach. Coach, the coach bag. Yeah, it's the Vuitton of Montebello. And Monterey Park. But anyway, we should talk if you want to really, okay? Donut shop?
Oh, yeah.
International Pancakes in Monterey Park? Can we really?
There's one coming from Sherman.
I know, right? What's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Other question? Then I think we should have a poetry reading by Marisela Norte.
In the summertime, when the light was really, no filter, just a little snappy little camera that I got at Office Depot. And I was looking at this beautiful red dress next to this beautiful yellow fire hydrant. I don't know if you can see her, but there's a young woman in really tight jeans standing next to her. So I'm taking these photos, right? And the daughter tells the mother, like, hey, that woman's taking your picture. So right away the lady turns on and gives me the look, and I was like, no, senora, just your dress. It's just your dress is so perfect right now. Just let me, I'm waiting for the bus to come. So all of a sudden the mom's posture changed a little bit, like, oh. Standing up a little straighter, and she turns to the daughter and she slugs her on the arm. She goes, she likes my dress. Like, Mom, but she's wearing this beautiful red dress, but she has little chanclas on. You have to see this close up. So this is for Alex, my novio. Angel. A stray bullet lodged between my fears, between fingers that stick, leaves broken English only on already red shoes. Monday morning, lunes, Los Angeles. La 98, la FM, la Latina work week begins. Drive-by shooting victim on Wilshire Boulevard will not report to the unemployment line. A struggle to keep my place among the original displaced person. Odd woman out, damsel in distress. I slight men's voices on the street, those that cling to the bottom of already red shoes. Men's voices that land too close when they spit as they cross themselves. Men's voices that will never have anything new to say to me. Tired talk radio blasting proposals in one ear. Can a violent relationship be turned around? Can a dead man still be turned on? Bad TV infomercial late at night, Brenda Vaccaro. Ooh, light this fire. The offering of salvation to marriages that sag like old mattresses propped up, left lying against telephone poles in other people's neighborhoods, or a child prays for a good night's sleep and buries his fists deep into black wires. Lunes, Los Angeles, Ciudad Lunática, where a woman is raped, murdered, and thrown into the trash, where she will land on soft pink pillows of disposable Huggies, especially for girls, where police tie a big plastic yellow ribbon around the city dumpster in a mock show of support for the female troops who must face their attackers daily on the way to work and in our dreams. They called her suspected prostitute, NHI, no human involved, and left her body inside as they wheeled her down an alley for closer inspection, further investigation. Homeless man on flower remains invisible. Big spender ignores orange vendor. A 24-karat Jesus swings on a lonely trapeze in the window of a discount jeweler. A stray bullet lodged between my fear, between memory against desire, leaves past and present on already red shoes. Women behind bars at the 24-hour Daddy's Donuts, deaf-mute angels throwing hand signs in the dark, a friendly sign that offers buches al gusto and flautas estilo Juan Gabriel. Homeless man on flowers sings impromptu blues for a cup of coffee. He remains invisible. I give him half my sandwich wrapped in a poem, and he calls me Angel. DJ Waldy being another writer who doesn't drive either. He's so cool, and he lives, I don't know where, he lives far. He'd have to take like
Lakewood.
4, but Lakewood?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an easy schlep to downtown from Lakewood. But anyway, so this is my Union Station poem. I'm calling it, it's called Train of Thought. If you ever get lost, she told us once, just get yourself to Union Station and you'll know how to get home. Find a calendar, put on a blindfold, and pick a year, any year, and there will always be a picture of me standing alone inside Union Station. In 1982, I stood poised and camera ready, my picture taken before crisscrossing sidewalks that led to Chinatown, Madame Wong's, Flora's, nightcaps at Yimi Lu, and always a shortcut chaser through Olvera Street before making my way back. Dropping dimes inside the dark wooden booths, heavy with conversation. If this grand station was a sacred place, then these rows of public telephones were the city's confessionals. Inside, I waited for answers, a ride home. Every morning, I wait for the light to change my mind. Every morning, it is never the same. The numbers change like the exchange rates on romance, survival, and a cup of coffee. I steady myself as if I were driving or already on a moving train going somewhere outside of this self. Just one of thousands of extras, all of us supporting players in this, the ultimate magical reality show, the Los Angeles Public Transit Story, where we have been cast as strangers on the same train of thought inside Union Station. Everyone, all of us, are going somewhere while standing perfectly still. We wait for a train, for a seat, the hooded, the buttoned down, the skateboard, the briefcase, the generic plastic bag carried by all of us, holding some extension of the other self as we move through this vast station, my favorite freeway in the city of Los Angeles. If you ever get lost, her voice trails off. A girl in a green t-shirt and a pair of black Converse sneakers is hunched over a textbook instead of a cell phone. Those same sneakers I wore as a child pretending to be William Holden, running up and down the long corridor of Union Station, a victim of the late show. Those same corridors, the polished footsteps, are my stage left. And today, Union Station becomes the knot in the throat of Los Angeles, where we in the thousands walk past, in between, over, way out, and under. Invisibly, we go hand in hand, silently knitting words, breaking the language barrier on a slow-moving train, searching for artifacts from 1959, 1978, 1982, and next year. Early in the morning, I see an orange rind left at the foot of the steps of Union Station. The orange rind has begun to curl in the Los Angeles sunshine, like the red cellophane fortune-telling fish we bought as kids on surprise trips to Chinatown. It curls a little to the left, as if to say, you will make your train. Good bus karma is yours today, if you ever get lost. Walking through this vast station movie backdrop, I'm a 70s cop show extra. I'm the woman on the red line wearing all 3 of the Supreme's wigs at the same time. I'm the one you want to sit next to. I ask myself, what year will it be today? Take the blindfold off and tell us where you were going and who you were wearing on the night of the midnight railway mass. Memory reflected inside the abandoned telephone booth where the portraits hang down the long, shiny corridor where your voices speak. Cool California tiles soothe your sore throat, Los Angeles. A full moon is waiting in the empty seat next to you. Every day I count 100 faces to keep my balance. I make room for a birthday cake from Clifton's, the sound of a train whistle, signaling. Adjusting the narrative's hemline, I take my place alongside the extras, all of us poised and camera ready. Finally, there is movement, the crisscross from purple to red line, from Inland Empire to Central Valley, and back inside Union Station, where I steady myself and prepare the imaginary questionnaire. I mark the area code switch, forever armed with a pocket full of dimes, so I can keep talking to you, Los Angeles. It is your fragile geography I carry in a see-through bag since 1955. Listening for the sound of your voice reminded me that if I ever get lost, in private and on paper, this is how I walk, this is how I wander. The only way to really know Los Angeles is by counting footsteps, I say. Sometimes I tell myself I am traveling. Thank you.
George, Sophie, Marisela, Mike, all of you, thank you so much for being here for an incredible evening. My delightful poetry seminar students, please come hover forward. Everybody else, please make yourself at home, have a little coffee, have a little fruit, exactly.
Get some phone emails, phone numbers.
Exactly. So don't feel like you have to disappear.